And it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Paolo Di Cesare. I'm founder of a company, Italian company called Nativa. We actually do, we are a design company. We help other businesses in becoming more sustainable. We say that we help companies in becoming future-proof. And Nativa also is a B Corp and benefit corporation in Italy, the very first one, actually in Europe. And a lot happens in the last 6-7 years. So today we have also other 3 fantastic companies, fantastic people, fantastic B Corps. And so we're going to have today Benoît Dauthier, which is the CEO of an Italian company called Antica Erboristeria. But your name doesn't sound really Italian, Benoît. Then we also have Blandine Stéphanie from Danone, B Corp Director. So it's a nice name for the title, a new title, B Corp Director for the corporate level. And then we have Elisabeth Soubellet of Squeeze, which is already an iconic B Corp, not only in France, but also, I would say, at the European level, and maybe even more than that. So the idea today is we're going to have, the organization asked me to give an introduction about what mission-led company is, what a B Corporation is. So I'm going to get 10-15 minutes to tell you about this, and then we go in the panel, and we go with some real example of what a mission-led companies mean. So I will stand up. So if you guys agree on that, and yes, it's really a great time to be humans, I will say, because something is happening, something very strong is happening today. This is my strong feeling, and I know that I share this feeling with a lot of people in the world. And that's why I use this statement, this quote from Victor Hugo. They said there is no one thing stronger than all the armies in the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. And this is what I wanted to tell you about today, an idea whose time has already come. And I would start with this first input, which is we were very lucky at the end in 1800 if we were English, because at that time the average income of the most developed country was around 4,000 per capita, $4,000 per capita, and the average expectancy for life was 40 years. So a lot of people will not be in this room, including me. But look at what happened in the last 2 centuries. It was an incredible progress running over the last 220 years. Most of the European countries are here, so with roughly $35,000 per capita per year, and with a life expectancy of 80 years. So in the last 2 centuries, a lot of stuff, a lot of problems, a lot of issues actually appear to be solved somehow, or close to disappear, from poverty to basic education, literacy, democracy, vaccination. But we did it with some cost. And one important element that I want to focus on is that one thing that I studied in Sweden a few years ago with a non-profit organization that was part of the Natural Step. One very important concept, that is that we live on the Earth, we know that is a closed system in matter and open system in energy. This means that the energy, the sun, can actually hit the surface of the Earth every day, like it does over the last 5 billion years at least. But also it's closed system in matter. That means that the same matter is today on the Earth is the same matter that was on the Earth 3 billion years ago. The same matter, except some asteroids that hit the Earth in the past, and some rockets that we push out of the biosphere. The same matter. So it's something like that. It's a closed system. And some scientists call it spaceship Earth, because it's very similar to this model. So we live in a closed system in matter, an open system in energy, like a spaceship. But what happened into this spaceship? First of all, let's have a look at the crew of the spaceship. It took 1 billion, almost 4 billion years to get to the first billion inhabitants on the Earth, and was at the beginning of 1800. Then it took another 123 years to add the second billion. Then 33 years to add the third million, and you see that, 15, 13, 12, 12. Now we are 7.5 billion inhabitants. And I was born in 1970. You can actually see that when I was born, the population of the world was half today. And my father, who just called me, was born in 1932, and the population is the triple of the population that day. Triple in his lifespan. And we also made a lot of stuff during the period. Look at this. If you consider everything that was produced by the humans over the last 2,000 years, divided by century, you will discover that the 55% of everything was produced during the last century. But most important, if you look at only the first 10 years of the current century, we already produced the 25% of everything. So imagine this distribution of quantities at the end of this century. A lot of stuff. And a lot of stuff to an extent that if you fly, if we fly to the Midway Atoll in the middle of Pacific Ocean, where the nearest coast is California, 4,000 kilometers away, we may see something like that. This is a closed system. So it's a closed system not only around us, but also within our bodies. These are the traces of toxins that are discovered in a human milk of a North American woman, which should not be there. And also, if you look at the temperature, this is the barcode of the Earth temperature of the last 140 years. You can clearly see that something is happening. It's happening to an incredible pace, with an incredible acceleration. These are the average temperature measured in each single country in the world, and the red bubble means the famous 2 degrees that you might know that in COP21, the Paris conference in 2015, the humanity said that we don't have to overcome this 2-degree limit, threshold, with respect to an average temperature. But you see that in a lot of countries, especially China, okay, in different countries, we already reached that limit, the 2 degrees threshold. But also from a social perspective, a few years ago, it took almost 400 billionaires, the most rich people in the world, actually to balance the wealth of half the population. Now, as you can see, only 8 people owns the same wealth as the poorest half of the population. And actually, the projection were not so strong, and the very last calculation was that this incredible number. And everything is running with an exponential acceleration that is pretty clear with technology. This is a picture that we took in Rome. I live in Rome, in Vatican City, in the moment of the election of Pope Ratzinger. It was 2005, and you may see a sympathetic Motorola here on the right. But only a few years later, with the election of Pope Francis, that is the same picture from the same perspective. So this is the acceleration that we are living in technology, but not only in technology, because many activities of humanity are following exponential curve, and they're happening all together right now, and also, consequently, even the impacts of these trends are exponentials. And I study engineer, and I used to work with, exponential curve, but did not really understand what an exponential means. So I want to do a little game with you. So imagine to fold a sheet of paper you have in front of us. What happened to the thickness of the paper? It's going to be the double, right? If I fold it. If I fold it 42 times, what happened to the thickness? Guess. 42?
Time 42.
42 times 42. It's going to be the average distance between the Earth and the Moon. So that is an exponential. But the incredible stuff is that if we actually fold it 41 times, we only are in the middle of the distance. We are very far from the Moon. So every time you see a trend with an exponential pace, you might think about it. And this is all happening in a closed system. So that's really the meaning of what is happening today on the Earth, exponential trends into a closed system. That's why now we are now dealing with plastics, with many, many issues that was already there, but we couldn't see it because the curve was not already exploding. And what about the business? What is the role of business in all this? So that's the main questions, because the business was probably the technology that we invented that was able to let the humanity have such a great progress. But at the same time, what is the role today of the business? And so I want to tell you a little experience that I had just a year ago. I was invited by this big corporation in Europe, and this is the headquarters of the company, more or less 2 towers, and I was invited to talk with the CEO about mission-led companies, B Corps, benefit corporation. The guy at the end of the conversation said, I want to be at forefront of this big change. So let's go and talk to the CSR director of the company. So we went out from his office and took the elevator from the 7th floor, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, downstairs. You know this idea of if you have an important role, you are in the upper level of the office of the buildings. Then we walk the hall to the 2nd tower. We took another elevator, and we went to the 7th floor to the CSR director. So I say, okay, that's an important role. But if you look at this picture, the 2 offices cannot be farther apart more than that. So on a side, you have the person responsible for the business impact of the company. On the other side, as far as possible, you have the person responsible for the social and environmental impact of the company. They cannot even talk to each other. So that's the typical model of 99% of the company today. The 2-tower model. So if we want to live in a prosperous future, this is a nice picture about Paris. It could look like when we will live in a decarbonized society. What will be the meaning and the role of the company? Is going to be the 2-tower model? Fortunately, something is happening already also in this big topic. And you know that organization of humans mostly is divided into 2 sides. We have for-profit companies, those who actually tends to maximize shareholder values. On the other side, you have non-profit organizations whose purpose is to have a positive impact on society and on the environment. But a 3rd category was invented just a few years ago, starting from US. These are benefit corporations. These are companies that have a double purpose, not only one purpose, but double. So that's the main element. Profit, and at the same time, not only on Christmas time, but at the same time, having a positive impact on society and environment. In order to build it, the designer of this concept, they also understood that they had to do 2 things. One thing is that they needed to invent a serious, a robust measurement system, assessment system, in order for the company to understand the impact that they're having, and also to improve. And the second stuff also to invent a legal status to recognize this company, to differentiate those companies. For the first topic, the assessment, was invented this incredible tool which is called B-Impact Assessment. today used by more than 70,000 companies in the world, who actually gives you two things: a score with between 0 and 200 that differentiate the company who actually are really creating value, not only from an economic perspective, but also socially and environmentally, from those that are destroying value, because somehow they are not giving back what they are using in order to function. 80 points is the threshold, and if you get 80 points, when you do the assessment of your company, you are awarded with this B Corp certification. These are B Corps. But the second thing that you can receive, this is incredible and new thing for a CEO, for a manager of a company, is also the impact profile. So a company like Patagonia today can actually see where its impact is directed to. And because they can see it, they can also decide maybe the area of improvement, or they can actually use it as a strategic tool to target the shape of impact they want to have. This is Patagonia, this is Fratelli Carli, an Italian company. Okay, so they are different, and it is okay, because I mean, as soon as it's like having a strategic objective from a financial perspective. Now I can have a strategic perspective on the impact I want to have. I was saying that 70,000 companies are using this, and only 2,655 they actually overcome this threshold of 80 points. These are the B Corps. And 3 examples are with us today, actually 4. These are some of those B Corps in the world. You may recognize some logos from Alessi, Danone, 10 companies of Danone, Kickstarter, Patagonia, Crepe & Waffle, Mustela, Herbatint, and so on. I was saying that Nativa, my company, was the first B Corp in Europe. It was 2012, beginning of 2012, and now there are more than 600 B Corps in Europe, and and Europe is showing the pace of probably the fast-growing community in the world. Another important news is that you know about the 17 SDGs, the Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations. The United Nations has actually chose the B Impact assessment in order to facilitate the work of the companies that they want to target one or more than of these 70 SDGs. I'm coming to the conclusion, but I want to remember to you when we founded Nativa, we used before to run a non-profit organization. And one really pain that we felt over the time was that our activities was defined with a negation, in a negative form, non-profit. So imagine to work every day to try to do the most beautiful things that you can actually dream of, and someone will define you with a negative form, non-profit. So in that time, we read this article on Harvard Business Review introducing the for-benefit enterprise, so the for-benefit corporation. And it was actually a magic moment for our life, for me and my business partner. And that's when we decided to found Nativa. And when we found it, we needed to deal with the civil codes. And in Italy, the civil codes, like in France, says that the objective, the purpose of a company is to share dividends. It's a very simple article. They gave to business one single purpose: share dividends. In America, I would say to maximize shareholder return, which is more or less the same concept. So if you look at the civil code, something happened. They forgot people and planet, which is today probably two of the most threatening issues that we are dealing with in this century. So we needed to change it. So when we created the Statuto, the statutory documents, the Statute of Nativa, we decided to put in the purpose of the company also people and planet. Our objective, our specific purpose that we want to target for our company. And you know what happened? That the Chamber of Commerce in Milan, they rejected it 4 times. 4 times. So we went back to them to talk, to inspire them, to try to tell them about the Harvard Business Review, what was happening in the US, but it was not possible to do it. So that experience was another magic moment of our life. In fact, we decided to run a campaign in Italy, and I go directly to the conclusion, and in 15 months, which is a kind of record, Italy became the first country in the world outside the US to have a law recognizing benefit corporation. These are called società benefit in Italy. And a few months ago, also Colombia joined a group of countries with a specific law about benefit corporation. And we know there are more than 12 countries in the world that are working on the same path, to have a legislation differentiating double purpose company. That is the point, double purpose company. I want to close with a quote from by a great Italian entrepreneur, which was Adriano Olivetti. You may know him. And this guy used to say, may the business has a purpose, may it be just a profit. Is there somewhere something more important, a destination, a vocation? He introduced the concept of vocation for a company, which is, very profound. And today, what you could do when you found a benefit corporation, you can bring this vocation into your statute documents and protect that mission for the rest of the life of that company. Thank you. Okay, so I hope I brought some elements to talk today, and I'm very glad to introduce the first panelist, which is Benoît Douatier. As we were saying, your name does not sound really Italian, but you are the CEO of an Italian company, right?
Yes, I will stand up also.
Okay.
So, hello everybody. Thank you, Paolo. So yes, I'm French, but I'm in Italy since more than 10 years now, and the CEO of this small and medium-sized company called Antica Erboristeria. We are producing cosmetics, and we are a small company, but local company, and a global company because we are selling all over the world our product. So after that nice presentation, so how a small and traditional company can be aligned with these nice speech and ideas. So we are talking about impact. So the idea is I will not do an extensive presentation of the company, but the main theme is how a small company can have an impact and can play also in that big problematic that's Paolo and his team and the B Corp are carrying. So 40 years of tradition. 40 years of tradition means roots on the territory. So we are based in Rome. We are producing in Rome. But also, as I was saying, windows on the world. So producing, speaking as well as we can, speaking well about our product. But soon, in the renew of the company, we realized that. We were proud about our product. We were proud about what we were doing, but something was missing in our mission. Is the way we could talk and be impactful in what we expect, what we express in our stakeholder with our stakeholders. So. We took that journey. So as we are selling a lot in the US as our first market, 6 years ago I went back in Italy with that nice discovery of this B Corp movement. And I've been personally inspired by leaders of big companies. You mention Patagonia. There is a lot of nice company inspiring leaders. And I went back in Italy, say, well, on my business, what can we do? How we can be also ourselves in our community, in our stakeholders, part of the game, inspiring also our stakeholders. So we've been the 10th company, the 10th or 11th company certified in Italy. So we are kind of pioneers, if we can say that, in Italy. And we went in the journey, went in the process of certification that described Paolo. Then we realized that we had some good points, good things to develop, but then we realized that so much thing yet to do. So that's the powerful B assessment that is produced, so inspiring and help to develop also capacity of being and doing better. And then we succeed. So we reach the 80 point. So we didn't create any value at that point. We were the minimum accepted for with a lot of efforts to reach this 80 point at the beginning. But then we clear the path that something could be done to inspire also our stakeholders. This was a really nice, thanks to Nativa, Paolo's company, work with all these public and politics and to pass that law. For a company like us, the fact that we could transform our status, so including our mission in the status. So sorry, it's in Italian, but I mean, I will went all these 5 impact that we've developed. We totally insert in the status where we think we could have impact, where we think we have an impact on our communities. We are speaking here during the forum about local impact, but also with our customers, with our all our stakeholders. So briefly, because we will come back, I guess, in more details. What did we put in that in our status? So beyond the declaration that could be a bit generalist, as a small medium company, we have to be in the real world. So how we can have an impact with our day-to-day operation. So transparency, authenticity, and awareness. So we realized that even on our level, we are doing a lot of trade shows all over the world. So we include not only how good our products, how nice we are doing marketing, and how clever the management can talk about the company, but we totally include also, and it's not an also, included in our booth values. So, and then we realized that on a booth in a trade show, when you have a standard, when you have a frame to be also clear on what you are saying, and the frame of the BIA assessment is very clear, it's very transparent. Each one of you can go even now on the internet, and then you will see the profile of my company, where the company have been assessed good, where we have a lot of progress to do. So this is a very transparent tool. The same during trade shows, we realized that this was impactful not only to speak about us in our operation, but what we can bring with, who we can bring with us on this journey. So we organize a lot of events on the booths, gathering B Corp of the world. So this is also something very interesting for the small company, having the occasion to meet and gather and share common objectives. So being seen not only as a cosmetic producer trying to do good, but really working together on same objectives. So the concept of interdependence that I have signed doing the B Corp assessment. So signing this concept of working and enhancing the company we are working with and the company we are talking with, signing a kind of purpose-minded agreement. So having sharing objective and going in the same direction. The second one, purpose, is linked with the technology. So as a producing company, during that journey of certification, we were at that moment short of space in terms of industrial projects. So we were thinking about building a new facility. So the conjunction of the two teams pushed us to push the frontier. So we designed, totally redesigned a company, reinvest in a new industrial plant. Then we realized that the certification for environment, for team that should be included from the beginning in this sort of industrial project is not obvious, is not common. So then we decide to go on the LEED certification. So you may know that this certification is enhancing all the industrial practices on water savings, energies, using recycle during the construction, even during the building of the factory. We decide, we take the challenge to not only certify the office. This is a trick that a lot of companies are doing. So to get the LEED certification on your door, then you take only 1% or really a small part of your activity, and then you are looking about your air con in your office and certify this building. So we decide to take the challenge to certify on the full facility, even production. And as you can imagine, the challenge is much higher. So since the beginning, we knew that we want to reach the platinum or gold and platinum, but we including all the production. Then you face and all the problematic that a cosmetic industry can have to face, and just to speak about water consumption as an example. Third purpose, so here in that forum it sounds obvious, but carrying a full project, industrial, sales, global for a small company, it's not. So the LEED certification I mentioned, but also bringing all our stakeholders with us. We were astonished to see how, when the frame is clear, I would say how easy is to bring with us small and medium companies that in their roots they are doing well. They have a lot of sense of responsibility on what they are doing, but for a lot of small company, missing the frame to express it on a sustainable way. So even in this theme of sustainability, process and attitude, we bring with us our supplier. We work with them assessment, using the BA assessment to include not only negotiation, price, quality and delay, but the value they were carrying. And we are very proud to see that in the almost 200 company in Italy certified, a lot of our network follow us. So we have suppliers that rebuild their facility using LEED assessments. We have suppliers on the way to be certified B Corp. We have US customer, first market. We brought back in US the B Corp. So they discover from us, small Italian company, that yes, there is something to do, and they are on the way to certify themselves.
Benoit, please. Sorry.
Yeah.
We can go on the other 2 points later. I just want to tell that if that being a societal benefit, you are also required by law to report every year on this. So these are not only intention that you wrote into the statute, but also you need to do activities, and every year you need to report the progress, right?
So in France, the CSR report is famous. So big companies, big multinational quoted have to do it. For small and medium companies, not so obvious. So yes, transforming the status. So we are publishing every year at the same time as the balance sheets, etc. A more complete document where objectives. These are, I mean, in the presentation, the 5 points are extracted on what we are publishing since 2 years now, with a concrete action. So on general purpose, then we decline on very concrete action. So maybe later on we can give some example.
Thank you. So from a small, medium enterprise, which is rock and rolling all over the world with the ability to involve a lot of other companies, we move to a big name, a big multinational, which is actually showing the path to other multinational, to how to adhere with this idea. So please, Blandine Stéphanie, you are B Corp Director of Danone, and we would love to know more about the organization and why the organization decided to pursue the B Corp certification in all their subsidiaries.
Yes, thank you, Paolo. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Blandine Stéphanie. I have the honor to lead the B Corp initiative in our organization. Some of you might have heard that about 3 years ago, we started a partnership with B-Lab at the initiative of our CEO, Emmanuel Faber. And since then, I've been leading this initiative. I want to take a moment to reflect on why we've been on this journey, how it fits with our heritage as an organization, and where it's taking us. So first, how it fits with our heritage and where we are coming from. I would say that so Danone is a 24 billion multinational. It's a very large organization, 100,000 employees. We operate in more than 120 countries. But the important thing to say, and maybe what I'm bringing to this panel this morning, is the fact that you don't have to be a small company to be a purpose-led company. And if we look back at our 3 CEOs in the past 50 years, so we've been lucky that we've only had a very small number of CEOs leading the organization, and they have very much shaped Danone as a purpose-led organization. I need to operate the slides. Yes, here we go. And back in the 1970s, Antoine Riboud, which obviously was the founder of Danone as it is today, made a very famous speech where he said that the responsibility of the company doesn't stop at the factory gate. And this was the start of something that has remained in the DNA of our organization since, which we call the Dual Project. And the Dual Project is a commitment to combine economic success and social progress. When I joined the company in 1999, the Dual Project was part of my induction plan. When new people join the company today, the Dual Project is still there, and all of the 100,000 Danoners, as we call them, have social and environmental objectives in their objectives. So it is very much rooted in that mission. So following Antoine Riboud and the famous Dual Project, his son, Franck Riboud, made a strong decision to focus the mission of the company towards health, so to bring health through food to the largest number of people, but still very much rooted in this Dual Project. And then Emmanuel Faber came a few years ago and is very committed to all of this heritage, but also recognizing that the challenges, I mean, Paolo made a very clear clear introduction that the world is changing at a pace which is incredible, and the Danone of today is not the same than the one that we had in 1970, and the challenges that we face as a large organization have massively changed. And this is one of the reasons that Emmanuel felt that we needed to reinvent the Duo project to make it even more challenging and to really help us transform the organization towards a future-proof Danone. So what started as a partnership between B-Lab and Danone at the beginning of 2016 soon became an ambition, a global ambition, to become a certified B Corp. So in these slides you can see the 9 company goals that Danone has. We've shared them at our General Assembly last year, and among them is the fact that we want to become certified as a B Corp globally. And as Paulo said, this is also an attempt to work with B-Lab to define the path for multinationals to become certified. So why do we want to be a certified B Corp? I would say there's 3 reasons. One, as I explained, we absolutely feel that we need to transform ourselves, and we can be. As a large organization, we face many challenges, and we want to be on this improvement path. And B Corp really very much acts as a catalyst, as a framework to support our transformation. When we are taking our subsidiaries through the B Impact assessment, some of them are already at above the 80 points. Some of them need to work to get there, and that's what we want. And in fact, some of our subsidiaries say that when they reach certification, the journey starts, because they want to start their improvement plans. And that's really what the mindset that B Corp puts us in. The second important thing for us was to be joining a movement of companies who want to build a different future, and we feel very much that as a large organization we have a huge responsibility to play, and we want to be part of that movement. I think I recall I was told actually when Emmanuel Faber met Marcello Palazzi a few years ago, the first encounter, so Marcello Palazzi from B-Lab, I think he said something like, "I found my tribe," and it was just a way to express the fact that we felt like being with like-minded companies who can challenge us but work with us also was very important. So not to feel alone on this journey. And then the final thing is about transparency. There is a huge need from our stakeholders, our consumers, our employees for transparency, to understand the business behind the brands that they know. And people want to, in fact, if we don't give them that transparency, they will find it for themselves. I mean, everything is available on social media, and transparency is something that has to be embraced by organizations and by large organizations. And again, this is very part of what B Corp stands for, and something that we feel we relate very strongly with. So.
Yes, I have a question, because I met a few B Corps in my life, and what I discovered, one common element that I see in all this organization is that a huge energy started into the organization because they are targeting the B Corp certification, or they are, starting this process. Do you experience a similar element?
So what started as a very small pilot, a few subsidiaries trying the B Impact assessment a little bit under the radar because we were not really sure what the outcome of the process was going to be, turned into an incredible momentum internally. And I think what's really important is obviously we have 9 subsidiaries certified. That's about 30% of our global turnover. So it's a lot. It's significant. So that helps the momentum a lot. The commitment of our CEO helps the momentum a lot. But there is also something that is even more important, I would say, which is how people personally relate to this ambition. And once I met a person in Danone North America who said, the B Corp ambition allows me to be in the business what I want to be as a person. And I think that's very meaningful to many of our employees to be actors of change and to build, to contribute to something bigger than their day-to-day job.
Incredible. And what about because you just mentioned Danone North America. No? North America is a country, or US is a country where you have the law, the legislation for benefit corporation. We know that the largest actually società benefit or benefit corporation in the world is actually Danone North America. Would you tell something about it?
Yes. So about 2 years ago, Danone decided to acquire WhiteWave, which is a leading company in the plant-based and organic food industry. And the merger of it was decided very much led by Emmanuel Faber that the combination of Danone in the US, the dairy business, and WhiteWave was going to be a public benefit corporation. So the new company was integrated from day one as a public benefit corporation, and that was a very strong signal to the market, to the employees, to all our stakeholders that this company was going to have purpose at the very heart of its new project. Yeah. And a year after that, so it started as a public benefit corporation, and a year after that they became a certified B Corp, and now the largest certified B Corp in the world.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to read the statute of Danone North America, no? Which is now a kind of a game for me. So every time I met a benefit corporation, I need to read the statute, because I wanted to see what is the mission, the vocation of the company. And what I also think is that we used to have legal notaries helping companies to write a statute. No? But when I read those new lines that are added in these documents, I think that maybe we need poetry much more than legal, because what your company stands for, which is the vocation of your company. So that's the kind of question that you need to answer. And so probably someone is able to get this feeling out from our heart more than our brain, could actually be necessary. And do you also have a
combination of the two?
The combination of the two, you sure. And do you also have a video to show?
Yes, so I can show, so I don't know. Yeah, perfect.
So this is the video for
the video that we shared at, when we announced that Danone North America was a certified B Corp with all our employees, our stakeholders, and our teams.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Yes.
So tell a little bit about your company, and mostly, importantly, the why you actually decided to push the B Corp certification, be part of this big movement.
Right. So my presentation is kind of the simplest, I suppose, in some ways, and our company is the smallest here, smaller than yours. We're only 4 years old. Today, we're a family team. My husband and I founded the company in 2014. We have 8 employees. We're located in the suburbs of Paris, and our offices are a couple hundred meters from our house, literally. So that's where we started. Neither my husband nor I necessarily came from an entrepreneurial background. He worked for a large car manufacturer, and I am, by training, a midwife and a special education teacher. So neither of us had really planned to do this, but it just happened that way. From a personal need, as is the case, I think, with many entrepreneurial stories, we were sitting at home one day talking about food and waste, and really came to the realization that something needed to change. I think, obviously, the video Paolo showed at the beginning, which is just one of many kinds of videos we see all the time today. You know, we're all trying to figure out what we can do personally at our level to help limit the warming of our planet and preserve our environment. So we felt that one thing we could do was to propose, to help create a solution, to help everyone become a consumer in a circular economy, or a more circular economy, simply and through everyday objects, made of thoughtfully sourced material and manufactured as locally as possible. And I'll explain about that. At the same time, participating in a new type of commerce, so capitalism that benefits all and contributes to the common good. Again, we're talking about contributive businesses or positive businesses, the main point just being that we're trying to create something and not destroy something. The problem that we saw clearly was the proliferation of single-use containers and products, which are creating this major environmental hurdle that we have to solve. In France, I can't read so small there, it represents 50% by volume and 30% of weight of the nearly 600 kilos of waste produced by one French person every year. Our first very small solution was to produce an alternative to single-use food pouches, which has a double purpose in that, one, it limits waste considerably, and two, it also provides an opportunity for people to have all the convenience of this kind of, I don't know if it's clear enough there, this kind of soft, flexible packaging, which has lots of advantages from that point of view, but with potentially homemade ingredients. So also limiting food waste and promoting cooking at home. So that's our solution. What's our impact? It's local, social, and environmental. We produce our pouches in Switzerland from European materials. I know it's not made in France, not yet. I'm originally from Texas, so for me, Switzerland feels like it's really close. Like that's practically local, right? But we did that, but we really tried to do everything we could at every step to have the most positive impact. So we produce in Switzerland, but then that comes back to an ESAT, which is for those of you who are not French in the room, an association that offers work opportunities to people with disabilities. So we do all of our packaging. All of this operation is done just a few kilometers from our headquarters with materials that are made locally. This little reusable bag, so we're not using single-use packaging even for our packaging, is made 30 kilometers from our headquarters also, and the paper is printed in the ESAT where we work and packaged there. So that ends up to a total of more than 60% of the total value of our goods, which is local, which for the kind of products we make is, I think, quite good. After that, our social commitment. So besides just working with an association for people with disabilities, we also have committed to give 2% of our turnover every year to charitable organizations and NGO projects. That's something that, a decision that we made thanks to our journey with B Corp and to the BIA. As has been mentioned several times before, the BIA is not a, I would hope it's not seen as a reporting tool. That's not what it is. It's really much more of a continuous improvement system which acts as a guide of best practices and also really encourages anyone who uses it to make better choices. Because for every question that's asked, you're going to have a couple of responses, and it's obvious that the first one, oh, that's pretty good. The second one, oh, that's even better. And the last one, when you click on it and you see how many points you get, you're like, gosh, can I do that? Can we do this, you guys? Let's do this. And it so happens that the 2% is today the best response offered on the BIA, and we're like, let's go there. And there was an evolution there also that I think is interesting, because we've now certified twice. We're part of the first group of companies certified in France, which celebrated the beginning of our community here at the World Forum 3 years ago in 2015. And we have recertified one time this year. And we improved our score, so that was really positive. It's not always easy. And in that time, I also noticed that in the first version of the BIA, you could express your charitable giving practices either in terms of a percentage of turnover or a percentage of benefits. And in the second version, we're only talking about percentage of turnover, because as everybody can imagine, it's not the same thing. We're not always sure at the beginning of the year what our benefits will be at the end of the year and how much we will have left over to share. But it's a very different thing if you say, this is not what I give at the end when I have some extra. This is what I commit to share at the beginning. It's not the same process. So that's how we decide to do it. And then afterwards, from an environmental point of view, the sale of our products in the 4 years we've been in business, according to our life cycle assessment, can be expressed in terms of 38 million single-use pouches, which were not thrown away, so did not have to be burned, dumped, or otherwise treated.
In a closed system.
Yes, in a closed system. So that's where we are. And again, I think there's a certain amount of there's fear out there today. We're all afraid. We all want to do better. My message is that also there's not only extreme solutions. The important point is to do better, not to be perfect. So my solution is perhaps not perfect, but it's better, and it has a positive impact, which is measured, recognized, and we are currently actually the highest scoring company in France, and so we've been honored to be put on a list called Best for the World for 3 years in a row. So that's what we do.
Thank you. So thank you, Elisabeth, to introduce the clear example of the impact you're having. And so I will come back to Benoit. And please, can you focus a little bit on the specific impact that your company is having? You know, this is not a typical question, no, for a business, at least just a few months or years ago. Now, what's the impact? Can you provide one or two examples?
So a clear example, and I was telling before about how interdependence can be a positive factor in global development. Impact to inspire. So we have our first customer who went in the BIA, and we were delighted to see that the response was yes, we aligned the strategy, and then these company themselves were taking the journey. The same as in our management or stakeholders. So we integrate in the evaluation of the our suppliers a way to assess also their impact and see how together we can do better. So to be practical, we are talking about short distance of buying. We are talking about best practices between our supplier and ourselves, recycling the packaging. So when it's possible, so or supplier or packaging supplier that are themselves using packaging can travel away and back between ourselves in order to save these I mean, not single use, but in that case also packaging. This is once again simple things, but simple small things that at the end of the year, I mean, is clearly seen positive in our assessments and give us even at our level the possibility to inspire.
So if I understood you now today, you rate and select also your supplier on the basis of their practices in terms of social and environmental impact. So that's a big progress.
Above than the certification, yes, for a company like us, I mean, we need tools. So we on the life cycle assessment, of course, but in the assessment of our value chain, we are not. Basically not just looking at price, cost and delay, as I was mentioning, but includes not only to put a mark and to exclude, but to work together. And the message is that, I mean, if it's a commitment, if it's a common commitment, then the things happen, and good for us, for the company, but good for them also, because they will be advocated also another way to be assessed, and they will themselves do the same with their stakeholder.
So it's an amplification of impact by involving all the stakeholders in this case, in the case of the example, your suppliers.
I don't know if we can say it's exponential, but our level, sure. We believe that in our activity, in a way, the exponential also happen when what you're putting in place can be reproduced n times around us.
Cool. Blandine, and Danone is a huge company, so probably you have a lot of examples to share with us, but maybe what will tell us about, which is one of the examples of the impact that you are having.
So indeed not easy to choose, but I would say that the biggest part of our ecosystem are the 140,000 farmers that we work with every day. So among those 140,000, 70% are actually families with less than 10 cows, so very small farms, but we also have some bigger farms. So for each, and obviously these farmers are very dependent on us, and in the same way that we are very dependent on them. So we work very closely with them. We've been building contracts, long-term contracts with them for years. We also constantly create new solutions, and to quote a few, in Europe and in the United States, where the volatility of the market is very high, we've decided to create some contracts which actually fix the price, not only based on the market price, so offer and demand, but also on the cost of production, to make sure that the price paid to our farmers is above what the cost of production has been for them, and beyond that offers them a decent living. Another very important part of our action with our farmers is to help them transition towards more sustainable agricultural practices. More than 50% of our carbon footprint as an organization comes from agriculture, and a big part of that comes from milk. So it is critical that we work with our farmers to foster more sustainable agriculture practices. So that would mean investing a lot of money in helping them transition to organic in some cases. It could be in the US funding transition out of GMOs. So we've made a pledge to come out of GMOs for at least 50% of our portfolio, and not only GMOs in our product, but GMOs in the feed of the cow, which is a revolution in the US dairy market. So these are the type of big changes that we do hand in hand with all those farmers, and in developing markets we also work with them to make sure that they are trained, to make sure that they obviously have the right level of revenue to be able to build a sustainable living out of their farming activity.
Thank you. I would love also to involve the audience here with the questions. So if there are any questions, please just raise your hand and I will give you the mic. In the meantime, so as soon as you are prepared for a question, I will ask to Elizabeth maybe one topic more oriented to the future. No? So we were talking about business, the mission-led companies, benefit corporation, but also, the situation we are living today, which is, controversial. So how do you see the future? I don't know, in 5 years' time, where the business will be, not just, not only the earth, but just the business, what will be, in your opinion?
My business or all business?
All business.
All business.
The business.
The business. The business. I think it's a super complex question, and I'm very glad that there are a lot of people thinking about that solution. I was really inspired this summer we have a gathering every year in Europe of all the European B Corps, and this summer was in Amsterdam, and we had the chance to learn about Kate Raworth's work from Oxford and her book Donut Economics, if you guys haven't heard of it or read it yet. And that was really interesting because even she is not saying that she has the solution, but everybody knows that we've got to figure out how to decouple resource youth from growth. And it's a big, 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 big question because none of us really know how to do it, because nobody wants to see our governments limited in the services they can provide for us, but we know that their main source of income is taxes coming from what we're producing. So this constant need for growth, which has led us to the situation we're in today. I'm positive. What I mean to say is that I don't think we have a choice but to be positive, I suppose. What are we going to do? We have to move forward and do that in the best way that we know how. And definitely movements like B Corp, countries that are moving towards recognizing legally companies that operate in this manner. These are all steps in the right direction, because we just really have to realize that modern since somewhere a couple hundred years ago, financial practices are just totally inadapted, in fact, to the world that we live in. We're measuring very much, this short-term goals, which are all based on numbers, and B Corp also is one way to help just start bringing that in, just start saying, our indicators cannot just be financial. We're just going to go off the cliff if we keep going like that.
Yes, a question from the audience. Hi.
Bonjour, Anne-Henri pour la Gazette du
I know Blandine Stéphanie. What is the interest for Danone to go to the certification? What does it bring? This is an excellent question, and this is a question that is being asked to me very often, and this is one I tried to say before. You belong to a movement, that is to say that you feel a part of a community of companies that wanted to have a positive impact. The second reason is to be changing. A lot of companies have a specific department for the social responsibility, and they have positive practices in this field, but the importance is that the following. You have to question constantly your activities, and you have to have guidelines on the problems to tackle. And I believe that the B Corp gives this possibility, this complete vision, this holistic vision of the sustainability, and therefore it makes it possible to question your activities constantly. You said, okay, I think that my relationship with the suppliers are perfect, but what about the profit for my employees? What about the recycling of my bottles? And I believe that this is a way to challenge the activities, to be more rigorous, and to improve your activities. When you are certified, the journey starts.
And a question?
Bonjour, Julien.
I work with the Crédit Coopératif. It is recognized for its ethical commitment in France. And I have a question for Blandine Stéphanie. We talk about the impact, the assessment of the impact, and we have just seen in France a loi PAC. And with your B Corp, as you did in North America, you said, why can't we integrate our emission in our statute? Of course, this is a question that has been asked by the Loi Pacte and by BLAP too, because the B Corp certified must, within 2 years, modify its statutes in order to include its mission. As I said, Danone has as a mission, and for a very long time, has had this commitment for this double objective for a company listed like us. To change the statute is something very complex. So this is something upon which we have not been working. We do not have a precise date, but we are working on it.
Yeah, this is a very interesting point because, also other European company and dealing with this, we know that maybe they are a listed company, so there are some, rules to be faced in order to get the statute modified. But nowadays, what is already something that really matter to me is to see that there are those big corporations that if you go to their website, they tell about their mission, the values, some fantastic mission you can see actually from the website. But then if you go and read the statute of the company, nothing of that is in the statute. So if you think about it, there's a huge gap between what is inside the operative system of a company, which is the statute, which is the stuff that the shareholder will look at, and what they actually communicate to all the other stakeholders. I'm not saying that what they communicate is not true, but I see a gap that should be reduced somehow. So that's why probably also the legislation that in France you are talking about, goes in a direction of reducing somehow this gap.
The only thing I would say is that even if we, at Danone SA level, if we don't have the mission in our statute today, it does not prevent us from communicating with our shareholders about all of this. And in fact, our shareholders have seen our ambition to become a B Corp. In 2009, they've agreed to put 100 million in the ecosystem fund to support local communities. So the conversation with our shareholders will not start the day we want to modify our statutes. It's already started years ago.
Yeah, I can confirm that the speech of Emmanuel Faber last year at the shareholders meeting in Paris is now famous inside the business community, because it was so clear with shareholders in engaging them in this path that it is a milestone for in this topic. Other question from the audience? So I have a question for maybe. Yes, please.
Oui, bonjour. Je m'appelle Annick, je suis...
Annick, I am a student in political science, and I am interested in these movements, CSR movement. We started the conference with the emergency of the situation, and you gave the example of the contamination of the milk, maternal milk. I have a question to Blandine Stéphanie, the new Secretary of State, as a lobbyist of Danone. And she defended the use of the palm oil for the babies. And I would like to know your opinion about that. It's the new election in France. Thank you for the question. As a matter of fact, up to 2 days ago, Emmanuel Vargon was responsible for B Corp, or ambition. I respect her quite a lot, and I wish her good success in this government and the challenges that she will have to face. I would like to say two things. First of all, the media are quite rapid to draw some conclusions and to criticize people. Emmanuel Vargon has spent 3 years in Danone with the sustainability and with the public affairs. That's it. Now, as to your question, as to the maternal milk or the milk for children, for babies, I am not going to take a position concerning what was said, but the palm oil is a complex matter, and of course it is a part of the subject that we are working on. And today Danone is a very small buyer of the palm oil, so we buy very little palm oil. We commit ourselves 3 years ago to be completely transparent concerning the origin. and we wanted to have a transparency of the supply chain, and we said that we are going to stop the deforestation by 2020. This is a priority for us. We will continue to work on that. I'm not an expert of the formulation of the baby milk. I'm not going to give you an answer. Is it normally? I'm sure that there are reasons why the palm oil is present in some formulation, but we will continue to work so that we could improve ourselves on that topic.
Thank you.
Je reviens sur la démarche B Corp.
Come back. What are the problems? What are the obstacles? And how much does it cost? The first obstacle, if you are big or small, the obstacle is that you wanted to do something. The questionnaire is online. It is free of charge as a tool. Everybody can have a look at it. You don't need 6 months to know what to do. You just have a look. It corresponds to you, yes or no. That's all. And then in terms of cost, the costs are transparent. They are on the website, and it is according to the turnover. And as far as I am concerned, this is a positive aspect of this approach, because it's 500 euros, the smallest amount. 500 euros. I am allergic because I heard sometimes, B Corp is something for the big companies. No, it's something for everyone. You only need 1 year of activity because you have to have a balance sheet in order to give an answer to this questionnaire, and 1 employee. In our community, in France as elsewhere, we have big companies and very small companies, and this is what is very nice.
Et dans les grandes entreprises, les freins?
And what are the barriers in the larger companies? Well, what Elisabeth said makes sense, actually. I mean, we got to want it, and we need to have ambassadors for this project, but it must also make sense and be connected to the mission of your company. For us, the reason it happened naturally was because there was a true logic evolution from a dual project to wanting to become a B Corp company, to take on board 100,000 people. I mean, it does take work, and there will be reluctant ones amongst those, of course, but there will be people who think that their priority is to deliver figures mostly, and it's legitimate to a certain way, because, I mean, there's a lot of pressure put on larger companies to provide results. I mean, this is dictated by the markets. And there are also people who think that it is important, but it's on the side. So after 2.5 years of experience now, I think that we've got to focus on those who are keen, who want it, and those who are the driving forces for this change, because they will help you to create this momentum and to neutralize the reluctant ones. And I'm stunned to see how some members of the organization who 2 years ago said, well, no, I'm not going to start that straight away, call me now saying, oh, well, when can we get started for my subsidiary? So that's it. Now, you've got to bank on those who are actors of the change, and I'm sure that you have those in any organization.
Bonjour, Clara.
Yes, Clara Osier, I work for the Profil agency. I had a question on the definition of assessment criteria for your impact, because the B Corp certification remains a certification which applies to questions available for any company, and each company has a specific mission, though. So my purpose was to understand better how you define these criteria, how do you select those criteria for this certification, and what are your setups internally? I thank you very much for this question, which is a question which is a general one about these mission-led companies. Each company has its own mission. Having said that, we all agree that there are ways of working which are common to all, and there are good practices. And it might be slightly dangerous somehow to imagine that only based on one or two sentences we're going to be able to judge the righteousness or not of a company. I don't agree with that. And I think that most people working on these questions think that it is important to have the larger possible number of indicators to make sure that you have managed to judge well the behavior of a company. Having said that, B Corp, to answer the question of how is the mission seen and assessed in the BIA, I mean, it's done differently. In B Corp, we've got the impact business model. So within this evaluation, we're going to review the companies with a highly specific mission dedicated to solve a societal or environmental problem. And in France, we've got several ESSs who got the B Corp evaluation because it goes further. So companies with highly specific missions have got a part which is devoted to them, and a lot of points attributed to them. So they come out very well in this questionnaire. The mission statement in itself is assessed in the BIA. Everybody's got to write their own mission statement, and we're going to see whether this mission statement has a certain number of attributes, characteristics, which are seen as being important or essential ones. And the questionnaire in itself is very complex and very well designed by a panel of experts coming from different backgrounds based on ISO 26000, NGRI, etc. It's a very potent tool which makes the difference between industry and size of a company. So no way is it a one-size-fits-all solution, but it makes a difference. It makes subtle differences to be able to include everybody on this shared basis. If you don't submit yourself to something with a common basis, I mean, it's very difficult to end up to a judgment then. That's what disappoints me a little bit in the governmental approach today, because obviously if everybody chooses their own assessment criteria, I mean, I can't see where the progress is going to be. It's going to be very difficult to judge the sincerity of the behavior.
So we are very close to the end of this conversation. Thank you. And just a very quick question, maybe a statement, maybe a view of how the future will look like for the business, considering all the elements in the discussion we're having today. Benoit. I don't know, in 5 years' time, where do you see the business community?
I mean, if all these positive movement, bring back to human, to the fact that entrepreneurship, sorry, the company often are stigmatized on what need to be done better. So if within 5 years, 10 years, then the real power and the real positive impact of this company can be enhanced, and see that the notion of entrepreneurship, the good, le bon patron, not on a part, sorry, to be to enhance the fact that the company can be positive, and on a human point of view, everybody have a space to be part of this positive movement.
Blandine? As an individual?
Yes, I think I'm fundamentally an optimistic person. So I hope that in 10 years' time we will look back and think, was it possible to do business without being a B Corp, without having a mission, without being purpose-led? And I see very positive movements, and I think what's also important is that many of us as employees, as consumers, have a lot more power than what we used to have in the past to make those changes in the choices we make, the products we buy. We have a lot more influence. So I'm reading a book which I encourage many of you to look at, which has been written by one of my very first line manager. It's called Respect. It's an interview of 10 CEOs of companies that are trying to move the needle, and she's asking the question, if not us now, who and when? And that resonates very strongly with me and with all of us, I'm sure. So how can we, let's just make the change.
Thank you. So Elizabeth, to close this discussion, you know, sometimes when we discuss about this topic also with other people, and we always come to a conclusion, which is, how long does it take for humanity and regulation, for consumer, for all stakeholders to understand that the only way to do business is to have not only profit, but also an impact, a positive impact on society, on environment as a condition to operate? Do you see a world of B Corps in the world in the next decade?
Gosh, I get all the future questions. All the hard ones. Yes, I do. I mean, I see different versions of this idea. I think B Corps are wonderful because we're global, because we're based on a common purpose, because we're using a common evaluation, and there's a lot of advantages to that approach. I definitely think it's changing. One only has to look at the financial market today and all the great desire there is for impact investing, for finding companies that have a positive impact, can measure and prove it. It's definitely heading in that direction. Again, the question is going to be: are we going to be able to manage to solve this question of what's the phrase of success without growth, of continuing to improve our lives and improve the lives of others without this growth that can be harmful in our finite world of matter, as you said. That's the challenge. Like Blandine, I'm positive. I think it's all heading in it's heading in that way. We just have to keep it up.
So we have a mission. Thank you, Benoit. Thank you, Blandine. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you all.